Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Shellda Podcast. My name is Dan Shelley, a professional paintball photographer. And in this episode, I sit down with the legendary Yosh Rau of San Diego Dynasty, and we dove right into topics about what the team means to him. What is the legacy of San Diego Dynasty, one of the greatest sports team in the history of sports? What does that truly mean to him? We talk about what the Dynasty Magic is, and is it actually really a thing? And then we ended with talking about what does he want his legacy to be? This is definitely an episode you're not going to want to miss, so let's jump right into it.
Photographer of the Year, let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shellda Photos.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Shellda Podcast, where today I am joined by, where do I even start? The legendary Yosh Rau of San Diego Dynasty, of Field 1 Paintball, first round future Hall of Famer, Hall of Icon. Like, your list is crazy. How are you today?
Thanks, Dan. I'm doing great. I appreciate that intro. At the end of the day, I'm just a player. I'm lucky to be a Dynasty player, but in the broad spectrum of things, I'm just a player. That's really what I enjoy most about being involved in paintball, is being a part of a team.
Yeah.
And it has opened up so many things for me, opportunities, and also just relationships, chances to talk with people like you and share ideas. And it's been a blessing.
Yeah. So you're spot on. We'll jump right into that. I think for me, paintball has been an incredible journey, right? Obviously, like, there's something about playing, there's that like high that you get from it, that adrenaline rush. But the older I get and the more I go through this journey, the more I see the most important thing for me in paintball is the people, in the relationships.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that really quick.
No, there's no question. The love for the game of paintball, it didn't grow based off of the feeling of shooting somebody. There's a lot of ways that you can get entertainment like that. The love for the game really came from the relationships and the chance to meet new people, develop relationships with people, and then ultimately work on something that you feel is really special with a group of people. And that still to this day, I 30 years later, right? 25 years pro, but even preceding going pro, the most meaningful part of being involved here is being around the people that are all interested in working on the same thing that I'm working on. It's something that I think is difficult for a lot of people to find in their regular life, and paintball offers you that. I was kind of reflecting on that with my wife. I got home pretty late last night from a trip doing a training with a team in Southern California, the Thrashers, great group of guys. Didn't know them at all really until I went down there. And, I went down there in the capacity of helping them with some coaching and setting up team infrastructure and stuff like that. And as I went through the week preceding that, I was like, what can I really offer these guys in a 2-day weekend, right? I'm going to have to start with just introducing myself and getting to know them a little bit and starting to understand, wrap my head around what their organization and their program is. And throughout the weekend, it was just amazing how quickly I started to understand them. And I think they started to understand me, and a relationship grew. And the subject matter is obviously paintball, but with that subject matter and the complexity of it, it was really easy to get to know these guys and to share myself and share what I know and what I thought might help with these guys, and just have an extremely positive experience, to the point where I like these guys and I want to see them more often, and we're going to be buddies, that all happened in a weekend. How hard is that to find? You're a 42-year-old man. You've got a family, you've got work, you've got all these other things, but you get the opportunity just kind of randomly one weekend to go meet a new group of people that you identify with and you have a great time with. And now you're buddies again. That's paintball to me.
That's beautiful. And that's, it's like when you talk about what paintball means to you and how it essentially brings community and brings people together. It's wild, right? Because people will create applications out there of, hey, sign up for this application to go meet people. And like you force all these ways to make friends. And it still doesn't really happen, right? But like,
It's hard.
there's something special with paintball where you get united around just a group of people and you have that instant bond and instant connection. And I mean, for some of those people you said on the Thrashers, they probably look up to you as like, wow, like Yosh is coaching us and helping us. And for them to hear that you want to hang out with them more and become friends would just be like probably mind blowing for them.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think they get it. I mean, that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about just this weekend's experience. And also it's very clear to me about the whole Dynasty experience, but I coach another team more full-time called Alliance out of Northern California. And those guys, it's like the same thing. I get together with them. I feel accepted into their group. I start to understand that they're all there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, if whatever you want to call it, like status is out the window. It's just a group of people all working on something together, sharing in like the enjoyable experience, sharing some like vulnerabilities, and working with each other to get through that stuff. That's the subject is paintball, but the lessons are life, right? Yeah. And it's just amazing to just have the ability to thrust yourself into that with like new groups, or I mean, even groups of like lifelong friends, and just have that, right? The community is amazing, and it's always growing. And if people are there for the right reasons, I mean, it's so clear that people can pull so much from it.
Yeah, that's something that I've talked a lot about with Amanda recently, is doing things for the right reason, right? Like doing things for passion first. And then when you do that, everything will follow suit. And speaking of doing things passion first, Hormesis obviously is a huge passion project for you, Alex, and Oliver, and everybody involved. Speaking of, thank you and to the rest of the team for sponsoring the show from Hormesis. It's crazy to like be working with you guys, and the relationship just means so much. And so it's cool that like to be represented by the brand Hormesis, but the people involved in it is what truly makes it special. Totally. So huge thank you to Hormesis. Well,
thank you, Dan. I mean, to be honest, like Hormesis has a lot of moving parts, right? There are like people that are working kind of behind the scenes. Miko deserves a ton of credit, but the whole thing was born out of Alex and Oliver wanted to do something that they just could do for fun together, right? Like you said, a passion project, and they haven't abandoned that. I mean, obviously the company has been successful to some level, and they've been able to like scale to a point where it can sustain some employees in paintball, which is by itself an awesome achievement. But the things that Alex and Oliver decide to spend their money on, the money that Hormesis brings in, they spend their money on more passion projects, more art, and recording paintball's history and creating things that are fun for people to do, and a tournament series that brings people together that's new, and movies that everybody can enjoy and kind of get the feeling of what paintball is all about. It's incredible. They haven't stepped away at all from the main reason that they started the company, even though it would be easy to do that. Instead they just continue to pour it back in. And I think that's why there's such a huge following for Hormesis. It's not that they make the best headbands. It's not like that. They make great headbands, but it's about the people behind it. And I think, them wanting to be involved in this project with you was an extension of that. You now are one of the people behind it, right? Your involvement and their involvement in the podcast with you is, again, just like adding to the team of great people and creators and people who are passionate about what they're doing. So really, I think the kudos goes back to you as well.
Thank you. That means a lot. It's cool to see Hormesis grow to something bigger than just a headband company. And I almost think, like, I don't even think of Hormesis as like a headband company now. Like, I think of it as a lifestyle, right? And I think a lot of people are starting to get that way. And then shifting really fast, speaking about like incredible people, you know these people so well. BFP Gear, Junior and Gina signed on from day one too, and they have just treated me like just like a family. Like I literally just got a text from Junior today, like talking about the event and what it means to him, and I think he always hooks you guys up with some Dynasty BFP gear. He's like, hey, what's your or he's gonna send me whatever that shirt is.
Excellent.
And so it's so cool to be surrounded by such good people. I feel it elevates my game when I'm around like-minded people, and I see that translating back to you. You and the team. I've had such a privilege over the past few years to be one of the few folks from the media team who have an intimate look into Dynasty, and just seeing the dynamic between you and the guys on the team, and even the relationship with you in the pits. It's unreal. Like I haven't seen anything like that in paintball and outside of paintball, of the level of detail and care that you put into the team. Can you talk to me about like what some of those relationships mean to you?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it is, well, first to touch on Junior and Gina from BFP Gear. They do so much for paintball, right? These are people who genuinely care about the game and the people that want to be involved in it, right?
Passion.
Like they've pursued growing the game and being a part of that growth and always being there to help people out for decades now. Junior was a pro player who had a dream about being in the pro finals and being on the pro field and chasing that dream for a long time. And he did accomplish a lot as a player. I remember him describing, I think he was looking at like a copy of PGI and like it must have been around the year 2000, and seeing Oliver on the cover and seeing like, this is amazing. This is like a kid who is realizing his paintball dream. The headline might've been like the $100,000 man or something like that, which, at that time and still today, that's a lot of money. And I can't speak to whether that was the actual deal, but the perception was that, if you fully committed, you could actually fulfill your dreams in that way. And Junior was like, I was ready to move across the pond to the United States to chase that dream because I saw Oliver and he was inspired by that. And since then, Junior and Gina have done so many things, especially in like the Central Valley and Northern California paintball scene. But now they're involved on a national level. They're contributing their experience and their hard work on so many different levels to just make people more aware of the greatness of paintball and enhance the community and help people who want to do the same things that they're doing. So, I mean, huge shout out, and like an endless shout out to them. And Junior obviously taking on a role of a co-coach for Dynasty with Mike Bianca is really special. And he's definitely a steadying force on the team. I mean, he's got the respect of the guys because of his thoughtfulness, but he's also been around the guys enough to understand the dynamic, right? And the challenge, this is like, I'm going to go way off on a tangent constantly.
This is great. Please do.
But the challenge for Mike Bianca as one of the new coaches of Dynasty is that he doesn't know all the guys really well.
Yeah.
Right. So he has to bring the experience he had coaching his other teams to a totally new group of players who have, I'm guessing, a totally different dynamic than, let's say, the Hurricanes. And he has to find his place there. And he has to figure out, like, how does this all work? And how can I enhance this? And I mean, I don't think the team has really made a better decision in the past few years than like getting those guys together, because complementary, that group of coaches, like between the two of them, and now they've brought in Joey K to scout, and we've got like an amazing pit staff and a core group of pit members. It's like everyone has really good energy working together, renewed energy to make the whole thing work really well.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's really awesome to see. It's like, I sometimes stand back from the team and go, man, this is awesome. Like watching these guys, but now I also stand back and look at the behind the scenes stuff and I go, this is this is amazing to see the energy here and the organization and the thoughtfulness. It's really incredible.
Yeah,
it adds to the Dynasty Magic. It's the Dynasty Magic. Whatever, you can either buy into it or you can't. Maybe you don't want to because you're not a fan, or maybe you don't want to believe that that's something that Dynasty has over another team. But for the guys in the camp, it's very real.
Yeah, so I definitely want to talk about that Dynasty Magic. Before we do that, I just want to make a quick observation. Over the past few years, obviously the roster has changed quite a bit, and it's like everyone has a tendency, right? Like some people go on the field and before the buzzer goes off, they twist their barrel tight, they push their pod pack up. I've noticed the past few years with you taking a different approach, the pole next to where you chrono in the pits, you lean on quite a bit when you're watching. It's like a safety thing for you. But this year with the new team, I've seen you're more engaged, like you're more in the huddle. And I took a few shots of you at Tampa, and I'll send them to you after.
Cool.
You can just see it in your eyes. Like you have such a re-energized feel for this team, and like you just see the passion in you. Do you feel that difference?
I do. I don't know that I see it the same way that you see it. Like internally, I have my own reasons to be extra motivated this year. And I would almost say that rather than that being a really positive thing, it's almost an example of maybe some like built complacency, built around the team's success and kind of the ease at which we went from season to season with a very similar roster and a lot of things were taken care of. Now, and especially through the off season and some of the changes, the motivation was rebuilt for me in a couple different ways. The first being that it's fun to kind of be the underdog. And I know not everybody thinks that Dynasty all of a sudden became an underdog because of these off-season changes, but some people did. And that's a pretty stark difference from the way people were considering Dynasty, let's say 2 years back. Yeah. I would say nobody felt Dynasty was the underdog, right? I mean, that's an accurate statement. Totally. Now it's kind of fun to be the underdog. Not only do you get the chance to prove people wrong, which, admit it or not, it's fucking fun to prove people wrong, right? Like
totally is, yeah.
A small thing or a big thing, it's fun to be a part of that. But also being an underdog and working with other people who are also like cast under that umbrella and have to do it with you makes it extra fun too. In a lot of ways, it takes some pressure off. That's a personal thing, but I mean, the motivation comes from that feeling and also having a new group of people who are incredibly energized and they continue to believe. They continue to dedicate their time and their focus and their energy, their resources, because they believe and they want to be around other people who care and believe. And even when you're feeling different from that, it only takes a very small amount of that like care and belief and being around that to say, this is real. It's easy for me to buy back into that. It's easy for me to say, this is awesome. This is something I want to be a part of. And while it's still always Dynasty, it's like, no doubt, a new group now. And that makes it special too.
Oh, wow. I love that. It's cool to hear the journey and how it unfolds for you and for having new people come on board. And you're right. Like I heard all the rumors and murmurs this season of like, that's it. Dynasty's done. They didn't make any big splashes. And in my mind, I'm like, hold on a second. Like, you don't know these guys. Like this is going to reignite and like change everything for them. So it's cool to see what that's done for you, for Alex, for some of the core guys, and to be able to see like the ups and downs at Tampa, like, watching Mike Bianca go through his first win and go through the ups and downs of that, watching the dynamic of him and Junior kind of learning each other. It was just such a cool moment. And this is where like I think Go Sports sometimes turns off, is after the match is over, when you come on the field and you're, you know, shaking hands with the other team. I looked at Mike and he looks over at the crowd, and I think his wife was there on Sunday. I think she flew in on Sunday. Yes. He looks to her and he's like, can you believe it? And I was like, it was such a cool moment for him of just, he felt like he made it in that moment. And it all goes to the show that what you guys have created for a team for them.
Yeah. And I just don't want it to be lost in the fray. And like, obviously there's known names on the team. There's guys that there's Ryan and Alex have been with the team forever, you know, like they're pillars of the team. But we have other guys who are also a huge part of the foundation. You know, I think it was like easy for us to look at the guys that left and say, man, these were some really great players and great teammates that are leaving our organization and they're going to go somewhere else. That means not only is Dynasty going to miss out on these guys' talents, but those talents are going to be redistributed elsewhere. It's easy to look at it that way. But something that happened in the off season through just being really open with each other, you know, as far as the players went, was that we quickly shifted into this idea that the biggest moves of the off season weren't actually those guys leaving, right? Everybody has their reason for leaving. The most consequential moments for us were when guys on the team decided to stay. Those were guys like Blake and Harry and Arturo, Danny. I mean, you can name the entire roster, excluding myself and Alex and Ryan, because like, oh, we're expected to stay or whatever. But really, it was about those guys feeling like they could be part of the leadership. Those guys taking ownership of a new role and a new opportunity. And that was extremely meaningful. That was enough to reinvigorate me and motivate me to say, I need to work harder at this too. You know, not only do we have to overcome whatever losses we took, but we also, we have to be better. We have to help each other become better so that we can be a better team than we were for the past 5 years. Very powerful.
I think you're spot on. And I think that's where sometimes teams will make a turn for the better or kind of stay stuck where they are, is when they have that vulnerable moment of, hey, we need to like look in the mirror individually and realize what we can do better. But then how do we look as a team and just have those really deep, vulnerable conversations? Talk to me about that, because I've noticed that from you since I met you, is you seem like you're a very, I don't know if open book is the right person, but you're okay to talk about like things that are bothering you, or things that, hey, if we talk about this, we'll have a better relationship, or we'll have a better team. Where does that come from, and how did you get to that point?
I don't really know how I got to that point. I actually don't recognize myself as a extremely vulnerable person. But I do see the value in sharing how you truly feel with people, you know, and it can't just be centered on bravado and confidence, even though that's what typically sports wants you to exude all the time, right? Yeah. Like sharing your concerns, your worries with people lets them know that not only are you a real person, but that you probably are worried or concerned, or at least care about the same things that they care about. And when you do that, then you can truly start to tackle things. You know, if you don't share that type of stuff, then some of the most important things or some of the most important hurdles never even really get looked at. Yeah. It's too easy to just say, we need to do this and this, when like there's a whole foundation of emotional stuff that you have to also deal with. And the success of people isn't always just built off of like the mechanics of practice work, right? It's not just like how much time you spend at the field. It's also about understanding your teammates and feeling empowered and feeling like the people you're around care about the same things that you care about and can see eye to eye with you and are willing to share with you. And that ultimately builds a strong team. You know, so it's like, it's not just like my goal to do that. It's I think I share that with teammates because I want them to reciprocate. You know, it's not just for them; it's for me too.
Yeah.
And that's part of the experience that I want to draw out of being around anybody that I'm going to team up with. I mean, my primary team obviously is Dynasty, but going back to these groups of guys, these other teams that play divisional paintball, you know, them welcoming me in, asking questions about my paintball experience, asking questions about, you know, what can we do better as a team, or like, how do we fix this? Like, I have to share. I don't know. I've actually had that same issue. You know, this is how I tried to address it. I don't know if it worked really well, but you know, what have you guys tried so far? And it's like through that type of sharing that you actually, I think, see growth.
I'm going to challenge you there. That is vulnerability to a T, like what you just described. So you said you aren't. Like I challenge it. I think you are.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot that like I think people are not really comfortable sharing, right?
Sure.
There's a whole. I mean, everybody has their personal life, and everybody's dealing with their own stuff.
Yeah.
Right, and that's not always easy. What paintball does for you is it allows you to kind of like, at least for these brief moments in time, like step out of that, and you can address, you know, a common goal with people, and you can have vulnerabilities based on that. You can have vulnerabilities based on your personal performance. You can have vulnerabilities based on something you think you're falling short of in your personal life or your work life or your concerns. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. You know, like I've been dedicating a lot of time to this thing, or I feel like I'm not spending enough time with my family, or I'm having a hard time finding the balance between work, family, relationships, planning for the future, living in the moment. You know, like there's a lot of vulnerability in there that I think I probably don't share that much, but paintball allows you to say like, okay, well, this is our goal. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about our feelings as it relates to that. It's almost like this language that, at least for me, has helped me to talk about things in regards to paintball, but it's like it's just the theme, you know, like I can draw some answers for myself out of those interactions, even though we're using like code words like paintball or game plans or team dynamic or something like that, you know?
Yeah. It creates like almost a safe space for you to talk about those other things.
Sure.
It's almost like an arena where, you know, it's like what they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's almost like, hey, what we talk about in paintball, like it stays in paintball, because it's kind of the same dynamic in a good way.
Yeah.
And just to share for everybody super quick, right when Yosh joined, like the green room, we were talking off air, you shared something vulnerable. You're like, hey, I'll step on the paintball field, like on the biggest stage, and I don't get worried or nervous. But leading up to the podcast, you're like, why am I getting anxious? Like, where is this coming from? So I really appreciate you sharing that, because, you know, a podcast is putting the light back onto a guest, which is something that you talked about, that you were thinking, you know, what is that like and how do I prepare for that? And what does that do for your brand? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you know, as I mentioned before we started recording here, the anxiousness that I feel about, like, I guess I would put it on being the center of attention. You know, some people really like that, or they think they really want that. Some people don't, right? Some people thrive even though they don't. Some people don't thrive even though they think they want that, right? Like there's all sorts of different dynamics there. But like, you know, I don't really want to be the center of attention. I like to work in a group. I like to be just a part of a group, you know? And so, yeah, like the nervousness or the anxiousness of being a guest here and having the spotlight on me, I think where that comes from is wanting to make sure that I'm doing things the right way. Because there's like a professional life aspect of that, where, like you said, there's a brand, right? Whether it's my personal brand, or I'm representing Dynasty or Field One or Hormesis or any of these other things that are out there publicly that I am a part of representing. And then there's also like making sure that I feel good about what I'm putting out there in an authentic way, making sure that I go to bed feeling like I was genuine and authentic that day, and then wake up the next day feeling confident that I can be genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
Right. I'll admit that's like it's a struggle. It's not a struggle to be authentic. It's just like making sure that I'm always considering that, it's like, I would say it's like kind of like the salesperson's dilemma.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to sell a product that you truly believe in, but what if what if it's your job to do something that you don't truly believe in? Well, I guess the advice is like, get out of that job, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Find something different.
Find something different. But that's like a cycle of life. You have to figure out, like, do I still truly believe in this? Is this still the message that I not just want to put out there, but like the message that I truly believe in? So I drive a lot because I have like an hour-long commute each way.
Yeah.
So like I'm like always auditing myself. How do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? How much priority should I put on planning versus being in the moment? Like, how do I communicate this in a way that's easy for people to understand, but I also feel good about the content of what I'm saying? And I'm sure everybody deals with that, but it's a
100%.
struggle. Like, it's almost like, maybe I spend too much time thinking about that, right? And then it just winds that back. Like, that's a cycle of like, okay, so I'm spending all this time thinking about it. So am I actually manufacturing these feelings, or are they true feelings?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty. Probably sounds pretty manic or obsessive compulsive, But it's the game that I play in my own mind.
Yeah, but you're not alone in that. I think so. One, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that right there is what so many people go through, one, without even knowing that they're going through it. Literally like 2 or 3 hours ago, Amanda and I were getting coffee like on our break, and we had that exact conversation where it was, hey, I want to do this, but like I don't know if I do this, what does this mean, and like how will I feel, and then what impacts from that. And then you get so far from the original part, you're like, wait a minute, is this like, how did I get here? And then you have to kind of like go work your way backwards to unpack all of it. And I attribute that to, part of that is passion, because you want to make sure you're putting out a message that you care about so much, about you and your brand. And yeah, your brand represents all the paintball companies, but it also represents like the Rau name. It represents your family. And that means so much to you and other people. And so I don't think it's manic at all. I think that comes from a place of pride, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice way of thinking about it. I'll try to think of it that way.
Yeah. Speaking of pride, I was thinking this morning, same thing as you, like kind of on a commute. And when we watch Go Sports, right, or like fans are watching paintball, they see the camera angles of you with your mask on, and like you look stoic. All these pro athletes on Dynasty and other teams, they just look stoic, like you're on the grandest stage in paintball. Everything is together. The whole world's perfect. But I don't think what people realize is every single person under that mask is going through similar thoughts that you're going through, of like, well, what does this mean? Or how do I do this? And every single person, I don't think struggles the right word, but they go through something. And so by you sharing what you're going through, that's helping other people out there relate to you. And they're going to be like, wow, he has that too, or he deals with that too. And like, it just creates that relatability with fans.
I agree. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but it's got to be on the mind of everybody. Like, did I say the right thing? Did I get my message across the right way? Am I about to say the right thing? Am I keeping the focus on what needs to be focused on? It's a huge part of being a teammate. It's a huge part of keeping things moving in the right direction. I mean, it's so easy with the chaos of paintball. It's an incredibly complex game. They're like, the variables are infinite. More so than like any other thing I can think of. I mean, really, like every single thing in paintball is a variable. Every paintball is a variable. Every thought that any player on the field is having is a variable. Every word that's spoken is a variable. The weather, the angle at which a paintball hits something, how much paint is on that bunker. Is it going to bounce off or is it going to break? You know, like these are all variables. It's incredibly complex, and you have to try to do a computation in your mind to like get to the best conclusion in a very short amount of time. And to do that in a way that is, you know, that gets consistent results, you have to have like a ton of self-control, you know?
Yeah.
You have to constantly be thinking about, how do I help this go in a positive direction? How do I make sure that we're continuing to take steps forward? Is it just on me, or can I help somebody else find that way? Right? Like sometimes you have to be kind of like the leveling voice to make sure the focus is put in the right things and that we're moving forward. Sometimes you have to shut up and you have to listen. Sometimes somebody else is being that voice, right? And you have to give them the time to get their point across, or like swallow what you were about to say and say like, time is limited. This point that's being made is good. Let's go with that and keep moving forward. And that's an incredibly complex thing. That is a beautiful thing about paintball, you know, and everybody, whether you consider yourself a seasoned pro or just getting into it, you are dunked right into that. You have no choice but to like consider that and be a part of that if you want to have success.
Yeah, paintball teaches you so much about your life. And I love what you just did there, because you just broke down so many different parts of paintball and how it can translate to just literally drop somewhere in your life, and like you can find some type of paintball analogy for it.
Right.
And as you were going through that, I was thinking, man, how does paintball impact me? And I used to look at 60 seconds as like, that's no time at all. Like I can't do anything in 1 minute. But when you hear 60 seconds on the field, you're like, oh, take your time, guys. We got plenty of time to get on the field. And like, you're not even stepped on the field yet until sometimes 30 hits. And then like, even sometimes I'll hear the 10 seconds, I'll look up like, oh, I've got time to like lay down, get situated, turn my camera on. And then you tell someone you have 10 seconds to do that, they would just complete panic.
Totally agree. I mean, there's like, I think at a certain point, if you play paintball long enough, you find that you're forced to live in the moment. You aren't, a paintball doesn't allow you to be thinking about like all these other things while your paintball game is going on.
Yeah.
Right. And in that way, and I've talked about this before. I think I had a brief conversation with Clint Riddle about this, but just like this idea that paintball, even though it's chaotic, is like this forced meditation in a sense. You know, it forces everything else in your life out and makes you focus on a singular thing. Now that singular thing is, as I said, very complex, but it's really difficult in our lives to achieve that in anything else, right? Like, even though I want to concentrate on work, there's so many other things that are constantly coming into my mind. Okay, yeah, I need to write that down. I need to remember to do that later. To truly achieve like this singular focus is difficult, even admittedly, and somewhat terribly, even spending time with my daughter, who like, I mean, there's nothing else that I would rather do in my life than spend more minutes with my daughter and my wife and enjoy family time. Yeah. But even as I'm doing that, I can't help but let like some of these other things creep in. You know, it's hard to turn it off. Paintball forces you to turn it off. If you don't, you're out. I mean, you're not playing paintball anymore. So as long as you're in the game, you're meditating. You know, like that's really special. And the other thing that teaches you is that as a game, as you're only focusing on that, there's like these moments that stretch out. It's like the moments in between a stream of paintballs almost. You know, like they can extend to this point where you have like an internal conversation with yourself in like an incredibly short amount of time, right? You're processing information and you're seeing things, you're like getting information from the outside. And in the meantime, 1 second has passed, but on the paintball field, 1,000 things have happened. That's really, really cool. You know, I think people are able to achieve that in other things. You know, like I've heard people refer to that as like flow state, where the whole thing slows down and you're able to like pick and choose what you want to do and make decisions as if you're able to operate in full speed and what's happening around you is happening in slow motion, right? Like how easy would life be if that's how it was? I think you're constantly getting into that in paintball. That's super cool. I haven't found anything else in my life where I've been able to do that. Even trying to simplify things. Like I love backpacking and hiking.
Yeah.
And there's something really simple about backpacking in the mountains, right? Like you've got everything that you need on your back. Your goal for the day is to get from one place to the other and set up camp. And that's your existence. Like your cell phone doesn't work. You're in charge of everything. Like all of your responsibility is on your back. And in each moment, you're just like putting one foot in front of the other, and like to get to your goal, that's really all you have to focus on. Put one foot in front of the other. But even with that type of like serenity and peacefulness and the surrounding, you still have all of these intrusive thoughts, It's beautiful, but it's not the same way that paintball treats you. Paintball forces you to only think about paintball in those moments. I think that's what keeps people coming back. There's like a purity to it, and the incredibly interesting thing is that like you get to live in this pure moment, but it's also chaos. It's somewhat mind-blowing that way.
I mean, you've won everything there is to win in paintball. Is that the reason? Like, is that what keeps pulling you back into playing every year?
It's one of the reasons. I mean, I still love to win.
Yeah.
Winning is a symbol that you have done a lot of things right. Winning is a symbol that you have worked hard, you have aligned yourself with good people, good teammates, and that when the challenge was put right in there in front of you, that you executed properly. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's no matter how many times you've won, if you win again, it's a great achievement. But yes, I mean, there's a lot of things that keep me coming back for paintball. It is living in those moments, and the life lesson there is that like it's okay to live in the moment, and you should actually celebrate those times when you can just live in a pure moment. But it's also, I mean, the biggest thing for me is working with a group of people towards an objective. That's what brings me the most enjoyment, and that's what gives me the most fulfillment. In that way, my enjoyment and my fulfillment in paintball isn't actually associated with winning. Winning is like a goal, and it's like I said, it's like a symbol that something was achieved. But the real pleasure comes from working with people, working with people that I care about and that I feel care about me. And I mean, even though like my body will get old and tired and broken, even though there will be times when you don't win, you're still able to tap into that. And if that's why you're there, then you will continue to come back.
Yeah. Has that always been that way for you? And the reason I ask is a while back on one of the earlier episodes, which is crazy to say a while back, Ryan said that switched for him at some point in his career where it was a selfish, like, hey, I want to win. And he started to get more enjoyment watching like his teammates win and being a part of that. Has that always been that way for you, or did that switch at some point too?
I imagine that probably switched at some point. I don't know that I'm really aware of that moment when the switch happened. I also, as I've gotten older, as it is the case for most people, I think it's easier to look back and get an understanding of why you've done certain things. You have greater perspective, right? Like people have shared their experience with you. You've experienced a lot more. You have the perspective of, these bigger life events that do kind of like maybe shrink down the importance of other things. And I don't know when, but I certainly feel like my importance is not necessarily to like win a paintball tournament. It's to be a part of something. It's to be a part of the community, right? And to be a part of the Dynasty tribe also. I mean, that's really where I center my focus, but that's the more meaningful part to me. Like I said, winning is like a symbol that you did things right. It's not everything. you can still be winning, even if you're not on the podium, right? Like if you're still working towards something and you enjoy what you're doing and you're achieving the goals that you wanted to achieve up until the main goal, you
Yeah.
can still be winning. I remind myself of that to keep myself centered on, like having fun, right? To keep myself centered on the experience and to not let this expectation or the pressure of winning degrade what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
In that way, I can enjoy every day.
Yeah.
Winning is great. I think there's and maybe my perspective is different because, as you said, the team has had incredible success, right? Like maybe that's just I have the luxury now of saying not a big deal, right?
Sure.
Maybe that's the case, maybe not. But like my perspective on it now is that it is really about the experience, and you shouldn't heap all this pressure on yourself to win. You should just keep doing what you think is right. You should be willing to work hard. You should develop a group around you that you care about, that cares about you, and I think success will come.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. And I think winning and success, like at the, reaching the top of the mountain, if you're backpacking or if you're playing a paintball tournament, getting on the podium, it's almost a form of validation in a way that I think we all look for. And I think some people put so much pressure on if they don't get that validation, it's all for nothing.
Yeah, certainly it's not a failure,
Yeah, it's not. At the end of the day, I don't think you're going to remember standing on the stage and looking out at a bunch of strangers as you accept a trophy. You're probably going to remember the intimate moments back at the house or the team house or the pits and all that. So it's an interesting dynamic when you talk about success and like where that validation comes from.
Yeah, and athletes struggle with that, I think, because there's this thing that's like, if you're not all about winning, if that isn't like the only thing you care about, then you aren't doing it right. I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to love what you're doing, whether
Yeah.
you get first place or second place or last place, that's where I can see that you're having a problem, right? You aren't doing enough, probably. Yeah, you aren't doing enough, but it can't just be all about winning. Only one team gets to win the tournament. Does that mean that the other 19 teams shouldn't be having a good time or shouldn't be enjoying the experience? Certainly not. It has to be a building process and trying to find rewards throughout the process.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because that's actually spot on to what I'm going through currently too. I've had so much trouble without even realizing it, just receiving praise or just anything in general from people. Like I want it, but then when I go through the act of receiving, like I push it away. And, of course, coming fresh off the Summit Awards, it's like, hey, I really wanted it, but then getting all these praise, it was like, I don't want all the praise. But I say all that because I just had like a really deep conversation with Amanda, and I think I pinpointed to where it came from. I grew up a huge New York Yankees fan, and Derek Jeter was the captain for all the years, right? Yeah. And he ingrained that in all of his teammates. And anytime you saw him on interviews, it was like, hey, the job's not done. We don't celebrate, until we get to that World Series. Like, we don't talk about it. He's about to retire. I'm not retired yet. We're not going to look back at the journey. And that created that mentality. And to me is like, don't celebrate. Like, don't ever do it. Yeah. And then you just get so far off of. Yeah.
You should. Tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Exactly.
You never know. You spend your whole life only working and you've created this distant goal that you may achieve someday. Awesome if you achieve it. But if you
may
spend
not.
your whole life not enjoying the process and not celebrating the little wins along the way, you've wasted a lot of time, and time is, like I said, it's just not guaranteed. So you have to enjoy what you did each day, and be like happy with what you did each day. And if you weren't, work on it the next day so that you can be happy that next day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why Tampa for me was such a mind shift, right? Because the last time I stood foot in Tampa, I was a kid in the stands watching you guys on the pro field and be like, oh my God, this would be a dream just to meet you guys. And then to be there and go through all that, it was just such a moment where like I didn't want to pass it up and I wanted to soak in every single moment to no matter what came from that weekend to like just enjoy that whole entire process. So it was I'm really glad you shared that because that unlocked something for me that weekend too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You mentioned your family and your daughter and how important they are to you. And this morning I was thinking, reflecting back on Tampa, and there were a few moments where I think Ryan's family, almost his whole family was there. Like his wife was there, Sloan was there, kids were there. And we were in the JT booth doing like a photo shoot. And I looked over and Sloan is sitting there, with some unreleased JT products. And I'm like, wow, what a cool moment for her and her dad. But then I was thinking about, I'm going to talk to you. That's got to be such a cool thing for you as well as, when your daughter eventually gets to a point where she can tell people what her dad does, it's not going to be a typical thing. Oh, my dad's a sales rep. My dad's this or that. Like, no, my dad's featured on billboards, on magazines. He's in movies. He's a professional athlete. Have you thought about that at all?
I don't know. I guess I have a little bit of push-pull with that, right? Because
tell me about it.
In a lot of ways, I don't feel like paintball is big enough to really like say like there's stardom in paintball, but it only exists within paintball, which is fine.
For sure.
Totally fine with me. It's not like being a paintball star just isn't exactly the thing that I want Ava to care about in regards to me. Like, it might be cool on a surface level, but it's pretty far down the list as far as like the characteristics that I want her to think about when she thinks about me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool because there's something interesting there, but it is only a small part of how I want to be thought about or remembered, especially by my daughter.
Yeah.
The things that are more special to me is that like Brad Mon, original forming Dynasty member, we've always had a really close relationship. We've gone on lots of backpacking trips together and we've had similar interests even outside of paintball. Brad recently moved to Northern California, the Bay Area. So he's like, spends time around the shop, gets to spend a lot more time over at our house with Ava and Mel. Yeah. And like, what's more special to me is that she knows Uncle Brad, right? That Uncle Brad is like a part of our life because of paintball. Like we have such a huge extended family through paintball. That's going to be awesome for her when she gets older. And we get to go like, we travel anywhere in the country or potentially even in the world. And there's like always somebody to call and hang out with or get a recommendation or introduce her to and say like, yeah, these are friends of ours, like these are really close friends of ours, or this is like this is an honorary brother of mine. Oh, like what a magical revelation that will be for her to like feel like the world is that much bigger for her because there's like this huge community of friends and family. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things where she says like, are you going to paintball? She knows Dynasty, she knows the logo, even though she can't read. She loves the book. Yeah. Those things are all very special. And those things are all in her mind because of my involvement in it. But again, it's at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the people and the relationships. That's what's going to make it really special.
What a beautiful answer. What about like when you are at her school, right, or anywhere, and you're meeting other parents? How do you introduce yourself? Like, hey, I'm Yosh. What do you say there?
I don't say I'm the paintball guy.
No.
But actually, funny enough, Ava just started preschool. I mean, she's going to turn 3 next month, so it's like very early. So it's like a daycare preschool type setting. Yeah. And I was walking in to drop her off last week, and I ran into one of the other dads that was dropping off, and he turned around. He was actually like pounding on the windows saying like, "I love you" to his daughter as he was leaving. And he turns around and like we make eye contact, and he goes like, "Did you play paintball?" And I go, "Huh,
Wow.
yeah, I do actually." I mean, later I realized that I was like, you can't really see it here, but I was wearing this Great American Paintball hat. So
okay.
the billboard was on my forehead, but his recognition of it was so quick. Turns out like he knew Oliver in some capacity way back when. And we probably met each other just through, Oliver's outside of paintball friends group. But it sparked a conversation about like, oh, cool. So you still play paintball. I had to explain to him that we're now the old guys. We were the kids, we were the old guys. But it's, it's fun, and we're more involved now than ever before. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation starter. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. A lot of people still can't process it all that well, but there's almost like, as I'm older now, it actually lends more credibility to it. Like, yes, I'm 42, I have a family, and I play paintball. And they go, oh, okay. Maybe you're not just like a immature kid, or maybe you are, and you've been able to make it work. I don't know.
Still, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun conversation starter, and it's definitely, I'm sure it stands out in people's minds. Like, oh, after I talked to that guy, that's the paintball guy. Weird.
Yeah. The reason I ask is, one, it's a fascinating question, right? Because some people will look at you and Dynasty as on top of the world and would do anything to be in your shoes. And then to hear you say, you know what, I actually don't talk about that in that moment is just such an interesting push-pull. But I go through that same thing in my full-time job. When people ask me like, hey, what do you do on the weekends? I'm like, I almost sometimes don't want to say like, oh, I'm going to take pictures of the paintball field because you're doing the paintball thing again. Or like, oh, you're that guy. And it's like, I used to be embarrassed by it, but now I'm looking at it as, when I say that, I kind of see like this spark in their eye, like, wait, tell me more about that. That's cool. What is it? What do you do? And then you get to explain all of it.
It's certainly interesting. Yeah. It allows you to share something that I think we all want to get the word out about.
Yes.
But it also can really kind of dominate the conversation. And then like for me, sometimes I feel like it replaces my actual identity.
Yeah.
Maybe my identity is paintball guy. I mean, I guess I should be okay with that too.
Yeah.
I am a paintball guy.
You are. So yes, thank you for saying that, because I totally understand what you're saying is that when you say anything in paintball, it dominates everything and they don't get focused on you as the person. It's, wait, tell me about it, explain it. And then you get so far off of talking about you or whatever the conversation was. So I completely relate with what you're saying.
Yeah. But like, I do love talking paintball. So I guess it's okay.
Yeah. It's like, which one do you go with,
Right.
Talk to me about something. I've thought about this a lot, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And I'm not trying to like pry for a date or anything, but have you thought about that last time that you, Alex, and Ryan take a field on a Sunday morning at an NXL event? Like what that moment will be like?
I think maybe I've only thought about it because people ask. I don't really think about it for me, and I don't think that moment is going to happen at the same time for all three of us. Like, it doesn't need to. We've done so much together. We will still always be involved in some capacity with the team, with paintball, with each other for sure. That, it'll be a memorable moment when that happens, but it's not going to be, I don't know that it'll be like the mark of a huge shift, right? Like it's just when that day comes, it comes. Yeah. I think one reason that I don't think about that day or plan for that day very much is because, as we've talked about, one of the beautiful things about paintball is living in the moment. Yeah. And for someone who struggles with living in the moment, because I have all these other things, I'm like, worried about the future and worried about what I need to get done today and tomorrow, and am I allocating my time right? You know, like there's just that constant, I want to say, like, burden of thought on me.
Yeah.
Paintball allows me to live in the moment, and I want to preserve that for myself. I want to continue to be able to live in the moment and be like fully there, and not, I don't want to be in a point where I'm like still playing paintball, but I have this planned time or retirement where I'm like phasing myself out and I'm not wholly present, you know, like that might happen naturally. It does for people, right?
Sure.
Like this shifting in what your priorities are. I hope that as that starts to happen for me, then I just can see it and shut it off, right? Like say, okay, I'm not able to put in everything that I feel I need to put in to be, you know, an equal contributor or to make the team better. I'm going to step into a different role, or I'm going to do something different and leave it to the guys that are here, that are able to do that.
Yeah.
You know? In the meantime, I just want to enjoy being there, right? And the motivation to be there and work hard and my ability to do that, I want that to be unwavering.
Yeah.
That doesn't answer your question very well. You know, I have no plan.
But it actually, it does though, because what you're saying is you don't think about that, which is forcing something that you want to try to improve in yourself, and that's staying more present in the moment. And if you let those future thoughts in, then it takes you out of the moment. So you actually did answer it beautifully.
Yeah, I want to nurture that. You know, I want to nurture that living in the moment part of paintball for me, because if I can get a really good handle on that, then I think I'll be able to do that better in other aspects of my life. You know, and it starts with paintball because it's, like I said, it's forced in a lot of ways. But I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to like shut off one train of thought and move into another and be fully present. You can like easily see what I'm talking about, like family and work and
totally
even paintball, right? Like I want to be able to shut off paintball sometimes and just focus on something else. Yeah. Paintball to me is the way that I'll practice that. So I want to continue to nurture that.
That's beautiful. I've never really looked at paintball as like a form of Zen, or even what's the word you said earlier?
It's meditation in a way.
Meditation,
it's chaotic, but it is like, you know, like you're not focused on one thing necessarily, but you are focused on one big thing.
Yeah.
It's been that way for me for a long time. I've recognized that, and that's part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, it seems like that's near and dear to your heart. I've done, coming into the show, I did a lot of research on you, on the team, and I don't think I can. I definitely did not find another team in any other professional sport who has won more tournaments and or championships combined and has kept the core nucleus together. And so to me, that makes Dynasty one of the, if not the greatest sports team in history. Like, have you ever thought of that? That's crazy to think about.
I think about it when people tell me about it, and you're not the first person to like try to frame it in that way. And I mean, you're right. You know, like there's not really another sport that has been, you know, that has had like the same core group of players playing together for this amount of time and enjoying success like Dynasty has. I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't know that you can find that. Understanding how small paintball is, you know, it's like kind of interesting in that maybe paintball is one of the only places where that could happen.
True. Yeah.
You know, like if you just use other major sports as an example, I mean, like baseball, football, the average career for a football player, I think, is like 2.5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, sure, there are guys who have done it much longer. Tom Brady, how long did he play? 25 5 years, 24
Seems
years,
like
something,
forever. Yeah.
right?
Since I was a kid.
But yeah, and he's considered like the greatest of all time and the only one that's really been able to do that. It is all of his teammates, they enjoyed a 1 year to 6 or 7 or 8 year career. So, I mean, he went through like multiple iterations of teammates and teams, and also his story went up and down. I think it's just really, really difficult to do that in other sports. I'm starting to see that it also is difficult to do it in paintball because things change. And,
Sure.
One of the factors is that paintball doesn't necessarily pay the bills. So, things in your life change where you're like, oh, yeah, I have to take some time off or step away. That happens to a lot of great players. And that disrupts an organization's ability to stay consistent. Dynasty's just been really lucky in that way to be able to like enjoy consistency throughout. And it's at this point, it's no longer just Ryan, Alex, and I. Obviously it's Ryan and Alex as the longest. The look back and you still see them at the beginning and they're still here where we are today. But there's also, there's guys where you look back into Dynasty's history and like, yeah, those guys are still present. And those guys reach way back too. Like Blake, like, I don't know if people understand how long Blake has been with the team and the amount and the type of growth that he's had through the team. And I see that potential and that promise with a lot of guys that are currently on the team. Like I see these guys as becoming foundational pieces of Dynasty that will eventually take on the roles that I have or Alex has or Ryan has. There's great potential there. It is very cool. It's not one of the things that I like look at and go like, yeah, we did it.
Yeah, sure.
But when somebody mentions it's like, yeah, wow, it is been a long time. We started young and now we're old and we're still enjoying it. That is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you told somebody, when they were a kid, like, hey, this is going to be your life. Like the friends that you have now when you're turning into teenagers are going to be the same exact friends that your core friends when you're older and you're still enjoying things with them. Like who wouldn't sign up for that? Like that's such an incredible ride and journey that you guys have been on together. And you've seen each other's highs and lows, right? You've been through all of it together.
Yeah. The funny thing about what you just said is I don't know anything else. So
Exactly.
like I walk around the world assuming that like everybody has these childhood friends and like this extended family and that's just the way it goes, I'm so fortunate so that's my perspective, but it is good to actually think about that and not take it for granted. It's very special.
Yeah, totally. Cause I don't think I speak to anybody from my childhood on a regular basis. Like not one person. It's crazy. And I think that's more of a normal than what your story has been so far.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to remember that and think about how special it is to have, people in your life like Ryan and Alex and Oliver and Uncle Brad and all these people, there's honestly hundreds of people that have like been in my life forever that are still there, easy to talk to. May not see them all the time like I see Alex and Ryan and Blake, but they're still there. And it's really great. I think paintball is like that for a lot of people. If you've been in it, you've got like these buddies from way back when, and they come and they go, they pop up every once in a while, but it's like pretty easy to just be like, oh, hey, what's how you been, and you fall right back into wherever you left off.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. And what you guys did for Dynasty, I think maybe it was last year or the year before when you put everybody's names on the jersey that's ever been on Dynasty. Like that was such a cool memento to really tie in that Dynasty family for everybody.
Yeah. Looking at that list, compiling the list was a challenge because it's been so long. Like we didn't really keep records of all that stuff. You know, if you go to like the Dynasty Wikipedia page, there's somewhat of a record, but there's also like, I mean, anybody put their name on the list. Like some, you know, paintball fan was like, I'll play on Dynasty, and they put their name on the Wikipedia page, and you have to like weed through that. I don't remember this guy. Does anyone remember this guy? You know, but yeah, it's a long list, and I hope that all of the people that are on that list, all of the people who have their signature on the jersey, feel the same connection that I feel. I mean, obviously, I've been here now the whole time, but it's just great to see those guys. They pop up at tournaments, or you just, you know, you see them on Facebook. Maybe you get a message from them. Maybe they're not in paintball at all, but they message you and they say, "Hey, I just saw that you guys are still in it. You know, you're incredibly old now, but you're still doing it. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thanks for the reminder."
Yeah, and you go, dude, it's great to hear from you.
Yeah,
you know, like it's a large group, and it's very cool. One of my goals for probably the next couple of years, it could happen this year. I've started to talk to like Ryan about it, and Alex about it, and Eric Crandall, who's like also been with the team forever.
Who's incredible, by the way.
Totally behind the scenes, right? A lot of people don't even know the name, and definitely don't know the face. But I started to talk to these guys about a reunion of some kind, right? We had we got a little taste of how that group setting would feel when we did like our family practice for Dynasty. New squad, getting everybody together and like making sure that introduction happened with the family members and all the guys, and having like a relaxing couple of days to do things and get to know each other. And I know that if we did a whole like Dynasty reunion with everybody that's ever been there, not everybody's going to be able to come.
Sure.
But it'll be a tremendous event, you know. And I've actually thought like that would be a cool Champs Club get together.
Oh my gosh.
Like an anniversary weekend, San Diego, and also you invite all the Champs Club members to come for, I mean, either a portion of it or just like, we could have 1,000 people there, you know?
Wow.
And just catch up with each other, get to know each other, and just continue to build on that connectivity. You know, that's a goal. I will continue to work on that, because I can see it already being like a very, very special event, you know, more special than winning a tournament probably is like getting everybody back together.
Yeah. I mean, those are, I think when you have that type of dynamic, that's where like those stories come out, and like you'll relive stories, but then you're also going to hear stories from the very first time that people maybe weren't ready to share in the moment of like what you meant or what a certain player or tournament event. That needs to happen. That would be amazing.
When I pull it off, we'll make sure that you're there.
Yeah, I'd be truly honored to be there. Going from the kid who had posters of you guys on my wall to working on, you know, projects with you guys over the past few years, it would be a really special moment.
It'd be cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Talk to me. I've got a few more questions here, and I want to respect your day because you're clearly still working, you know, at the Field One office.
It's shot already. Don't worry. Let's keep it going.
We'll rip it then.
I'm just kidding with you.
Talk to me about the Dynasty Magic. And I've heard you talk about it earlier, but the reason why I really want to ask you this is, obviously Tampa was pretty recent. I'm hearing other teams now talk about the Dynasty Magic in their pits, which is insane. So like, talk to me about what that means to you. And it's a real thing.
Yeah. I'm definitely not the person that put that label on it, you know, but I mean, I also hear other teams and other players that I have a huge amount of respect for. I mean, we're like competitors, you know, and they're players that I know we're going to run up against us at a certain point. Yeah. But it speaks to the power of whatever that is. Call it Dynasty Magic or, you know, whatever you want to call it. It speaks to the power of it when you know that it's in the mind of someone you're going to be competing against, right? Like it gives you, I don't want to spill the beans because I don't want people to start pushing it away from their vocabulary, but
sure.
I mean, if you're in there and they're talking about Dynasty Magic, you're in their mind at least a little bit. A really funny example is we were at Tiki's at the layout practice before Tampa. We were playing against the Red Legion guys, and I'm on the sideline standing next to Kirill, and I've had a huge amount of respect for Kirill, and he's a good dude. He's always treated us really well. He's always been a very strong competitor, and he's been an easy guy to, at different moments throughout paintball, like talk about, what's going on with the teams, or like compare some ideas, or like give him a compliment on what they're doing, or him give a compliment on what we're doing, and like take a step back from being competitors for a second and like show some appreciation and respect, right? And there's a point happening. It's breaking down. It's low body situation, and we're standing on the sidelines, and the point breaks down to a one-on-one, and it's Joe Barrett and Malloy. And that's a great one-on-one. It's just, there's not there's nothing on the line. It's just practice, but it's entertainment. And we're standing there, and he goes, okay, I have a question for you. Who wins here, the skilled or the magic? And obviously he's referring to his guy Malloy as the skilled, right? Even though I give Joe credit for being an incredibly skilled player.
Yeah.
But he immediately put that magic on Joe because he's wearing the jersey, and he goes, the skilled or the magic? And I go, I don't know. That's hilarious, but I guess I would have to say the magic. Wow. And then the one-on-one happens, and again, there's no real meaning put on it, but Joe wins. And Kirill goes, looks like the magic wins again. And it's just like hilarious. Like I love that. I will always tell that story because that is one of the guys that I respect as being like a fierce competitor and having his own thing going. And he even attached like that name to what we're doing, right? I guess he's been a victim to it enough times, right? And he also appreciates like, okay, there's something going on there that I would like to tap into and instill into my team.
Yeah.
Right? It can be the difference maker. Funny story. But
that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, to talk about like what it is, I mean, it's just, I think it comes from just a deep level of caring, like it's not something that is created over a weekend. It's something that has been created over a lifetime. And, I think different people buy into it at different times when they come to the team. But on this team, it's not that difficult to see these things that happen and attach like a little bit extra to them and say like, man, it's just incredible to see like this all coming together. Yeah. It's like you're with a bunch of people who care about you. You start to care about them. You feel empowered by them. You feel empowered like that you can do everything. They believe in you. They want you to be yourself. They want you to trust your instincts. There's nothing more empowering than that, when you're around people who are obviously good at what they do and all they can tell you, help me out. What can I do? Just be yourself. Just believe in yourself. Trust your instincts. Just be yourself, right? Like that is the advice that I give anytime it's asked from a new teammate or a teammate who's like struggling a little bit, right? And they can be struggling for a day or a match, like no big deal, but it's still the best advice I can give. It's not my place to say like, oh, you shouldn't have snapped out then, or you should have made that move. Like, let's give credit to the guy. He understands that part of it. Yeah, but where he really can use the help is just like a boost, more confidence to be himself. You're there for a reason. You've made it here. You've gotten the invite. You become a part of the team for a lot of reasons. All we want you to do is be yourself, trust yourself. And I truly believe that's like the best advice you can give a teammate. We're not trying to change you when you get here, Yeah. We're bringing you here because we want you to be a part of this. And I think guys buy into that. And I think that's the feeling you get when you join Dynasty. Yeah. That's not just me saying like, oh, that's how I treat it. That's the feeling you get. People want you to be yourself and to just help you to become the best version of yourself.
Wow, that's definitely not where I thought you were going to go with that. In a good way, because when I was thinking about that question, I was thinking about what do I see the Dynasty Magic as, and like how have I seen it from my perspective. And like I've always looked at it as like, oh, it's got to be like a family thing, because like whenever anybody comes into a team, you treat them like family. But like what you just said there, I don't think has clicked with me or other people. It's you're empowering them to be themselves, not to be something else. And I think that's where so many other teams are failing is they bring somebody in and they try to mold them and fit them to be some cog in their team, and that's where it fails. But you're bringing them in and empowering them to just lean into more of themselves, and that's some of the best advice you could give to somebody, paintball or not.
It's also the easiest thing for somebody to like receive and actually do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's difficult to be somebody else. You don't even know what direction you're supposed to be going in.
Yeah.
Right? It's difficult to fulfill this expectation that somebody has that you're going to do a certain thing or like fit into the box that they want you to fit in or fill a void. Right. Like Marcelo is a fantastic player. He left the team. Everyone that leaves the team has their reasons. We don't even really need to talk about that. The question becomes like, who's going to fill the Marcelo spot? The team doesn't need to fill the Marcelo spot, right? And I'm not going to say like we have this guy to fill the Marcelo spot. That's not what it is. The Marcelo spot leaves with Marcelo.
Yeah.
The new spot is called the Harry spot or the Joe spot or the Kyle Berry spot or the Blake Yarber spot, right? Like that's the way it is. We want our guys to just be the best version of themselves. That's the gift that has been given to me over decades now of playing with these guys. It's just like the belief and the confidence to just be myself, speak my mind, say the things that I feel like I need to say, put in what I feel like I need to put in, and think about and execute the game in the way that I believe it should be played. Yeah. And that's the gift that I want to continue to give my teammates. And it's more difficult, but as I coach these other players on some of these other teams, that's what I want to try to find a way for them to see the game as well and see themselves, right? Like, because I can't go there and visit them for a weekend and watch them play and say, you need to do it more like this guy. You know, it's like your perspective needs to be like, you need to look at the situation. How do you think that should have been fixed? Okay, you have some idea. You're not sure if that's the right idea, but that's what you should pursue because that's the only way that you're going to truly understand it and feel confident that whenever that time comes that you actually did find success, that you know how to find it again. You know that you can do it, right? If you're trying to emulate something else, then you maybe not are really getting a good grasp on how to continue success. You're just trying to like achieve one thing. So I don't know. I think that's a part of the magic, you know, and something that I will always tell players that come to the team. Yeah. Just, you know, be yourself and try to be the best version there. And if you're struggling to do that, then we can talk a little bit more deeply about why that is, you know. Yeah, maybe you're receiving some conflict with somebody on the team who's, you know, not understanding your viewpoint or your perspective on it, you know, and we can help to reset that. But just be yourself.
I mean, not only is Dynasty Magic like great team advice, that's like great parental advice too, you know, to kids or to coworkers. So
certainly, I mean, that is definitely something that like I hope my wife and my daughter also have instilled within them, you know, and that, you know, it's easy to say that and it's easy to give that advice, but when you're involved with somebody, you are also responsible for reinforcing that. You know, and definitely true within the team. I can tell Harrison, who's already he's a very, very confident guy. He's, I mean, extremely capable. He's a fantastic player, and he's gathering experience by the handful, which is adding to his paintball IQ and building him up as a confident player and a leader.
Yeah,
I can tell him like, Harry, just be yourself as much as I possibly can. But also, the way that I interact with Harry and the way that the team interacts with Harry in tough moments is reinforcement for that, right? So like you have to be aware of that too, and the team is pretty good at that. I mean, the team is pretty good at staying focused on that value of trusting your instincts, and being yourself, because that's where the team and the individuals have always found success for themselves. So like it's not hard to remember that instead of coming down on a guy really hard or telling me he should have done something different. Instead, giving him the keys to the kingdom to say like, hey, mistakes were made. How are you going to fix it? Cool. That's your answer. Do that. I trust you to be in that situation again. And now you've got an answer that you figured out yourself. So you have to continually work on that with people. And I mean, that builds an incredible amount of trust too. Like when you support somebody in that way, they start to really feel like you're on their side. Even when things are tough, you're on their side. Even when things are tough, you still believe in them as the person, and you don't really care about whatever action they just took. Maybe it was a mistake, or maybe the circumstances made it not work out, but you still just trust that they're going to make good decisions. They're going to fix it. That's a big part of, how everybody on the team, I think, gets along and works well together. Just like there's belief in everybody, and you just build off of that. And I guess that has something to do with creating the magic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly one of the reasons why that's made Dynasty so successful. I think people, whether they're in paintball, pro sports, or just in their personal lives, they'll spend their life trying to find that true belief in themselves and having somebody else believe in them. So by you guys having that core, and that's what your bread and butter is, like you're giving a gift to people that they may never achieve elsewhere in their whole entire life. Like that's so magical.
It's great. And like something that happened in Tampa is like, I keep using Harry as an example because I really love Harry. He's a fantastic teammate, and I've witnessed him going through tough times on the team, just related to like opportunities that he was given and playing time, and him dealing with that emotionally and psychologically and wondering why, and like feeling like he wasn't getting a fair shake. And he probably was, he probably was correct in that, but that still it shakes his confidence a little bit.
Yeah.
So like in Tampa, I don't even remember exactly who he was talking to or if he was just addressing the group, but you have these moments where the team is together. It's no one's stage, but like we're all there and things are being said and everyone's receiving the information and getting a boost from it. And Harry's contribution in that moment, which was spot on, was he just said, guys, be yourselves, and like I don't even know if Harry and I looked up and made eye contact, but like we've said that to each other so much over the past year and a half, 2 years, that to hear Harry say that because he felt it was right for the moment, it confirmed to me that had sunk in and that was valuable for him, and when he wanted to inject value back into the team and help somebody else, that was the thing that he could, that was the thing that poured out of him, and that was the thing that he wanted to help somebody else with. It just shows that it's working, it shows the power of that statement, right? Just be yourself.
Wow. And that's, I mean, whether Harry stays with, Dynasty or plays paintball or goes on to something else years from now, like that advice you gave him, that's going to resonate with him for the rest of his life and whatever adventures he does. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I don't give myself credit for giving him that advice. I just know that I've said that to him before. I'm sure he was getting that advice from other people. I hope he was getting that advice from other people too. And then to hear him inject that back in, now he's giving that advice back to me. Like I'm not necessarily a master of practicing that advice. I just know that it's good for people. Yeah. So when somebody gives me that back, when somebody shows that they're confident in whatever decisions I make, that they trust it, that's empowering for me too. So it's it's great. And the energy of the team is really good. And I think the energy of the team and the coaches and the crew are all really kind of circling around that type of aura, just like, hey, we're all here together. Let's just really celebrate this positive energy that we have.
Yeah. And like I've been around watching obviously Dynasty since you guys were inception as a fan, and now being around the team a lot more. And it's so cool just to see the different shifts and the different, I guess, themes of the teams throughout the year. Like the theme that I've seen from the new team this year, it's almost like you guys are kids again. Like everyone's excited to be around each other, and there's so much love and joy and happiness. So it's cool to see the different iterations that you guys keep going through.
It is constantly evolving, for sure. Yeah. And it's probably a cycle in a lot of ways too,
for sure.
At least certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in a good place for sure.
That's awesome. I've got 2 more questions, and then I'll let you go. Something that's been really important for me the past few years is legacy. Like when I'm old and looking back, a lot of people say like when you're on your deathbed, like life flashes in front of your eyes, right? And I want to look back and be proud on what I've done and all my accomplishments. When 30, 40, 50 years from now, when that force is on the wall, right? It's collecting dust. What do you want your legacy to be like? What do you want people to remember you as or from?
I don't know. Maybe it's different, like with the different people in my life. I have my daughter. I just want her to be happy. So if she has to look back on me and I'm not around, or whenever that day comes, because that's
sure.
inevitable. I hope that she someday understands that I hope I'm able to accomplish this also, because the story is still being written. But I hope she understands that I put a lot of emphasis on just her being happy, whatever that is. I don't know that you can give you just can't give everything to your kids in terms of like guaranteeing their success, right? And also success is measured in so many different ways, but so is happiness. And so those two things I think can go hand in hand, in that, I could also say, I just hope that she realizes that I focused on her being successful. But to me, that almost cheapens it, because people associate success with a lot of things that I maybe don't agree with.
Yeah.
Success, right? Like it should mean whatever it means to you, but but society has success measured in a lot of different ways. Happiness, I think, is a more pure feeling, and it's like the best way to live your life. If you can do whatever it is that you're doing, it's like being around people that you want to be around. It's your daily routine, whatever that is, that makes you happy. However you're set up financially, right? Whether you want to be married or not be married, who you want to be married to, all of those things contribute to your happiness. And I hope that she feels empowered to just be happy, whatever that means for her.
Yeah.
As far as like legacy with the team, that's a pretty tall order to live up to with my daughter, but that's my goal. Sure. As far as legacy with the team or with paintball, I think it's like the idea of people thinking back on their time spent with me and just like that bringing a smile to their face, like thinking of me as a good teammate, not really as a great player or a good business person or any of that stuff, like it's just, that guy was a good teammate, because that's what makes me think back on people in the most fond way, not like, oh, this guy brought us championships. It's like, this guy was a fantastic teammate. Doesn't really matter. I don't frame that in a way that measures like a medal count or a trophy count during that guy's tenure with the team. If he was a good teammate, he'll always have been a good teammate. That'll never change based on, a reference point of a win or how many wins the team has in the future or whether the team never wins again. Being a good teammate is a good teammate. I think that's where I would love to have my legacy be left.
That's such a beautiful answer, especially the piece for your daughter. I think without you saying it, you want to empower that dynasty magic in her, which is empowering her to go find her success. So full circle
Sure.
moment there for you, sir.
Yeah, I guess the lessons do run deep.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So I've ended all of my podcasts with a pretty cool way to like tie guests together. And so I've asked every guest they get to ask a question for the next guest without knowing who's going to be on. And they get to ask whatever question they want to. And so like the questions have been silly questions to like very deep, thoughtful questions. And I'll give you an example. Sal, one of your good friends, his question was, is cereal a super chowder? And then I've had, it's a great question, right? And you can just see Sal asking that too.
Yeah. And different people will unwind that in different ways for sure.
Totally.
Let's see how someone's mind works. I'm glad I don't have to answer that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yours is tough though. And then I've had people like, I think it was Ryan Gray asked if you could have dinner with any like deceased family member, like who would it be and why? So like the questions are all over the place, which is great. I had Kyle Spica on last week, and his question for you, without knowing you're going to be on, was, in your current state, you hold a truth to you that is so absolute that it sometimes can be challenging. It can limit yourself. How do you see whatever that truth is changing? And so to give you some more like framework and examples is, Ava may be a good example. Like maybe right now she hates vegetables. Like you can't get her to eat broccoli, but in 10 or 20 years, you know what? Broccoli's going to be okay. It's like, that's her truth right now. So do you have any truths in this moment that you think 10 or 15 years now will change for you?
Thanks a lot, Kyle. It'll be difficult for me to just like have an answer right away, because that is pretty deep. But it's worth thinking about that probably for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if you can arrive at what that might be, then maybe you start finding that new truth sooner, and maybe that helps you.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't know, something that I guess like something that I've been thinking about lately. So maybe I'm already in that transition, and maybe this isn't the right way to answer the question, but at my age, I'm 42 years old. I have this perception of myself that like what I'm doing now, I guess call it professionally, right? Because I have call it a new family. I mean, I've been with my wife for a long time, but Ava makes us a new family.
Yeah, totally.
But professionally, what I'm doing now feels like it's been such a huge investment of my time that like what I'm doing now is what I'm going to be doing later, and in a lot of ways that extends to this notion that like, I think a lot of us have a lot of fear to start new things, especially as you get older. We have, I think our fears grow. I don't know another way to describe it, but our fears grow in starting something new, because you maybe feel like you don't have enough time to actually get to a point in that new venture that you're going to have the success that you want to have. Or maybe it's just hard. Maybe you just don't feel like you have enough time to even work on it daily.
Yeah.
Right. I've started to feel like my life is like, there's still great potential for my life to be as long as it's already been. And the perspective that I have is like, look at all the shit that has already happened.
Yeah.
Look at all the stuff that has already transpired that took a ton of work. And it felt like in the moment that took a ton of time. Yeah. New projects started, new ideas explored, new relationships, things came and went. And I feel like there's actually, it's reasonable. It's not guaranteed, but it's reasonable for me to think that there's still actually a whole nother half, right? Like I'm only at halftime. So like, you can think about it in perspective of a paintball match too, right? Like if there was a halfway point in the paintball match, like
Yeah.
whatever happened in that first half of that paintball match, no matter what odds may be stacked against you, you're down 6-0, right?
Yeah.
It is an example, and it's proven because of what just happened that the possible range of outcomes is that you win 6 points in a row in the second half. You know, like that's a way to look at it. So now I'm trying to refresh my perspective on that. Like I need to like push the fears down of trying new things.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a generalized answer to what I think Kyle was asking, but it's the first step in me, I think, understanding what my next truth will be.
Yeah.
And getting over the truth is like what I'm doing right now is what I'm destined to do forever. That is not the case. I want to get to the point where I'm just like totally open to try new things, start new ventures, and not fear running out of time there. You know, like when you run out of time, you run out of time. That's it. You know, like it's actually time to stop worrying then too. But up until that day, just pursue things fully, right? Even new ideas, pursue them fully. Don't get bogged down in things that you don't want to do, and be open to pursuing new things and encouraging people around you to pursue new things too, you know, and reminding yourself, hey, we can start something new. We can try something new. It's going to be okay. There's time to recover, you know? So I don't know. That doesn't answer Kyle's question. He did ask that's a pretty tough one, honestly, because it requires great perspective. And if you have that perspective already, then you're probably already in the process of changing that truth.
Yeah. I mean, even though it didn't answer the question, the spin you took on it is beautiful. I don't know if you're a reader or not, but there's a book I think it's called Halftime. And it talks about like the moment in your life where you go from this kind of, oh shit moment, I just did all this stuff and now I'm looking forward like the next half of my life and like, what do I want it to be? And like it talks about getting over that fear of trying something new and going through that whole entire journey. And I definitely recommend it if you're a reader. I think it would be something really important for you in your life right now.
I'm a listener.
Let's get it on an audiobook for you, especially with that hour commute.
Exactly. It's easy.
Yeah. Cool. I'll send it to you after this.
Very cool. Thank you.
For sure. So now the pressure's off for you. You get to ask a question to the next week's guest without knowing who it is.
Okay. This is something that you mentioned to me that I should have prepared for. A good question. You giving examples of like what Sal asked and then what Ryan Gray asked, and then hitting me with the Kyle question. Yeah. It's pretty wide ranging. I don't know. I don't really want to just ask a paintball question because I feel like those questions are asked all the time and just, somewhat easy to answer because the framework is there.
Yeah.
But I guess a good question for whoever's next would be, what are you going to do to better yourself or your situation within the next year that you haven't mentioned to anybody? Right? Like,
wow.
It's easy to kind of set a goal, and some people use like explaining that goal to somebody else as like a motivator, right? Like, well, I told this person I was going to work out 320 days out of the year. So now like, as I make X's on the calendar, like this person's like also looking at the same calendar, and it's easy to kind of monitor that. Right. But I think a lot of us also, we set goals or we set an intention to accomplish something or to better ourselves in some way.
Yeah. And
the thing that we use to kind of protect ourselves from the full commitment is keeping it inside. Right. So I'm going to ask this person to put it out there publicly to have some accountability with, all of your listeners. And hopefully that opens them up to fully commit to it and report back to you in a year's time.
Wow. That's a beautiful question. And as soon as we wrap, I'll tell you who it is and why. I think it connects pretty well. That's cool. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, Yosh, this has been incredible. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come on and share your story and what Dynasty means to you, and just how you've progressed and what you're going to go on to, how this team's going to go throughout this year. It's going to be incredible to be able to witness it firsthand and watch it and capture those moments right along with you.
Thanks, Dan. And I definitely want to impart to you how much I appreciate that you've not only like created this platform and put a lot of work into it, but the nature of the platform, you know, it is far from generic in the conversations that you have with the guests that you've had on. You know, it allows people who listen to, I think, gain perspective on how like these figures that they maybe, you know, hold up in on some sort of pedestal, right? But it gives them greater perspective on their thought process and some of their vulnerabilities. And I think it connects the community really well, because it, you know, what I've seen from the content that you put out is you're allowing paintball players and your guests to be people, right?
Yeah.
And it's important for everybody to see that paintball players, no matter where they've gotten and what achievements they may have gotten to, or what their role is at this time, they're regular people. They deal with a lot of the same things and the same obstacles. The same things bring them happiness. You know, that's an important thing. So thank you.
That means so much to me. Thank you for saying that. And that you're like, if I could have like a pitch of why I do this, it's exactly that right there, right? Because when we all get to the field and we put that mask on, like we're all the same, right? And it's hard to relate to people that are all the same. And so, you know, figuratively speaking, I want to take that mask off and learn about the people under that, because that's where the most human connection comes from. And I think we lack that quite a bit in our sport. So I'm hoping this will help elevate it in some way and help push our sport in a different direction, in a good direction, to create that human element to, I think, what we're missing.
Awesome.
So that means so much. Yeah, thank you. And to everyone who's tuning in, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Shellda Podcast, and we'll see you next week.